If you've been on a GLP-1 medication for a while and you keep hearing about berberine, you might be wondering, is this just another supplement trend, or is there actually something real here? And more importantly, does it do anything meaningful when you're already in a GLP-1? In this video, I want to slow the conversation down, not hype it, not dismiss it. Just look carefully at the biology. By the end of this video, you'll understand why berberine keeps showing up in clinical trials, what it's actually doing under the hood, and where it fits and does not fit alongside a GLP-1 therapy. This isn't about replacing anything. It's about understanding how the metabolic tools work together. So let's take a look. To put a little context around this, let me briefly introduce how I'm approaching today's discussion. By the way, my name is George Logan. I'm a biological scientist by education and training, not a medical doctor, so nothing in this video should be taken as medical advice. This is about education and discussion, and any medical decisions should always be made with your own healthcare provider. Along with my usual weekly check-in, today I want to take a closer look at a supplement I've personally been using for a little over 3 months now, berberine. What caught my attention wasn't the hype or the social media buzz, it was the quality of the evidence behind it. Berberine keeps showing up in well-designed controlled human studies, particularly in research focused on metabolic health, insulin sensitivity, and cardiometabolic risk. So today we'll talk through what the strongest human data actually suggests, how berberine may be working biologically, where it may fit, and as adjunct, not a replacement, for people focused on metabolic repair and long-term health. So before we get into the science, let's pause for my usual weekly check-in. Here's where my weight trend landed this week, what went well, and what I noticed around appetite, energy, and overall momentum. This week I'm down 1.4 pounds. That's solid, sustainable progress. It keeps me right at about 2.1 pounds per week since starting back on July 28th, 2025. As always, this is about progress, not perfection. Now here's the most meaningful update this week. After a conversation with my cardiologist, he made the decision to take me off my blood pressure medication. As excess adiposity has come down, my blood pressure has normalized on its own, with consistent now home readings around 118 over 70, and sometimes even lower. That's not something I take lightly. I'm very thankful for the outcome. And it is a powerful reminder that improving metabolic health often improves multiple systems at once. Next step, we'll see whether I can also come off my low-dose rosuvastatin, which has been managing my LDL cholesterol. So one step at a time. All right, enough about me. So now let's zoom back and look at berberine and why it's earning serious attention in the metabolic health conversation. So what exactly is berberine? Berberine is a bioactive compound found in several plants, including barberry, golden seal, Oregon grape, and also tree turmeric, many of which grow naturally across Asia, Europe, and North America. For centuries, extracts from these plants have been used in traditional medicine systems, particularly for digestive, metabolic, and infection conditions. Now, what's interesting is that berberine is not taken from the leaves of the flowers, but primarily from the roots, bark, and stems, which are the parts of the plant most involved in defense and survival. Modern supplements isolate and purify berberine from these plant sources, producing a standardized compound that now can be studied in controlled clinical studies. What makes berberine especially interesting today, it's not its history, but what we now understand about how it works at the cellular level. Rather than acting like a stimulant or mimicking hormones, berberine influences core metabolic signaling pathways inside cells, pathways involved in energy sensing, glucose handling, and metabolic efficiency. So this places berberine in a very different category from most supplements people try. Less about forcing an effect, and more about helping cells respond appropriately to signals they're already receiving. So the strongest clinical evidence for berberine is in blood sugar regulation. So across multiple human trials, berberine has shown to improve insulin sensitivity and reduce both fasting and post-meal glucose levels. Now at the cellular level, berberine helps cells become more responsive to insulin signal, improving the movement of glucose from the bloodstream into muscle and other tissues where it can be used for energy. Importantly, berberine does not force glucose down or push insulin levels higher. Instead, it improves how efficiently cells respond to insulin that's already present. That distinction is important because it means less strain on the pancreas, more stable blood sugar, and fewer large swings after meals. For people dealing with insulin resistance, which becomes common, more so as we age, this supportive, signal-restoring effect is exactly what is needed. So berberine's benefits aren't limited to just blood sugar. Clinical trials also show meaningful improvements in lipid markers, including reductions in LDL cholesterol and triglycerides. At the cellular level, berberine appears to influence how the liver handles cholesterol. Rather than blocking cholesterol production outright, it increases the expression of LDL receptors on liver cells, helping clear LDL particles more efficiently from the bloodstream. This receptor-based mechanism is one reason lipid levels can improve without the same degree of metabolic strain seen with some other approaches. At the same time, markers of low-grade chronic inflammation often move in a healthier direction, likely reflecting improvements in insulin signaling, lipid handling, and vascular function. Notably, a randomized clinical trial by Kong and colleagues, published in Nature Medicine in 2004, demonstrated that berberine produced LDL cholesterol reductions comparable to statins, but through a different biological pathway. This combination, improved lipids, reduced inflammation, and better metabolic signaling, helps explain why berberine has been associated with improvements in overall cardiometabolic risk. Now, mechanistically, berberine activates AMPK. This stands for AMP activated protein kinase. This is often described as a cellular energy sensor or metabolic master switch. AMPK helps cells detect when energy is low and respond appropriately. And when AMPK activity improves, cells become more efficient at using available fuel, and they're less prone to storing excess energy and better regulated overall. This shift encourages processes like improved glucose uptake, fatty acid oxidation, and reduced unnecessary lipid synthesis, all of which support healthier metabolic balance. Now, berberine also appears to influence the gut microbiome, which we now recognize as a major regulator of metabolic and inflammatory signaling. Now, research suggests berberine can shift the composition of gut bacteria towards profiles associated with improved insulin sensitivity, reduced endotoxin production, this is from the bad bacteria, and lower systemic inflammation. So because the gut and metabolism are really tightly linked, these microbial changes can amplify berberine's effects well beyond the digestive tract. So taken together, the AMPK activation and microbiome modulation help explain why berberine's benefits often appear broader and more integrated than expected from a single compound. All right, a quick apology up front. This slide gets a little nerdy, but if you'll bear with me for just a little longer, this is where everything comes together, and then we'll bring this whole discussion to a close. Now, berberine and GLP-1 therapies are often talked about like they're competing ideas, when in reality they work at different layers of metabolism. Notice that these tools work at different levels of the system, one largely cellular, the other largely neurohormonal. So let's start first with berberine. At its core, berberine helps cells respond better to insulin. That means the glucose moves out of the bloodstream and into the cells more efficiently, where it can be used for energy. And over time, this shows up is modest improvements in blood sugar and A1C. And these are not overnight changes, but steady progress that reflects healthier metabolic signaling. That matters because berberine is supporting biology. It's not forcing it. Berberine also tends to improve cholesterol and triglycerides. And several studies also show reductions in visceral deep abdominal fat. This is the type of fat most closely tied to cardiometabolic risk. Now, under the hood, berberine activates AMPK, which is the cell's energy manager, helping cells to decide when to store fuel and when to burn it. And here's the key thing to know about berberine. It works slowly. Benefits build over weeks to months. And that's not a weakness. That's actually what metabolic repair actually looks like. Now let's talk about GLP therapies. GLP-1 medications work primarily at the level of appetite and signaling. They act in the brain and the gut, quieting food noise and restoring more normal hunger and fullness cues. For many people, this is the first time food stops running the show. GLP-1s also slow digestion, helping people feel full sooner and stay full longer, which supports eating less without constant effort. Because of these effects, GLP-1s can support significant, sustained weight loss, especially when the body has been actively defending excess weight. Now, most importantly, GLP-1s work upstream, resetting appetite and energy balance before food even reaches the bloodstream. So these aren't competing tools, they're actually complementary ones. Berberine supports metabolism at the cellular level. GLP-1s support regulation at the brain-gut level. And together, they help biology work with us and not against us. So one final thought. As we've just seen, berberine is not a replacement for GLP-1 therapy. And it's certainly not a magic solution on its own. But when used thoughtfully, alongside good nutrition, regular movement, and in some cases GLP-1 medications, it can support healthier metabolic signaling and help reinforce progress people are already working hard to achieve. So for me personally, after more than 3 months of consistent use, the changes I've experienced line up closely with what the clinical data would predict. And that's always encouraging when lived experience and good science tell the same story. Now, if you're already in a GLP-1 journey, my encouragement is simple. Be patient with your body, stay curious, and keep focusing on long-term health, working with your biology, not against it. And if you're still considering whether GLP-1s or other metabolic tools might be right for you, I hope this series helps you to approach that decision with clarity, with confidence, and better questions to bring to your healthcare provider. So I thank you for being here. None of this is about shortcuts or chasing perfection. It's about learning how your body works and working with it over the long term. So stay curious, stay patient, and keep asking better questions about your health. If this approach speaks to you, consider subscribing and walking this path together with me. So I'll see you next time, my friends, on GLP-1s for seniors.